Hi there, Frank Flegg here, founder of Ethical Property Partners. Today I'm going to be talking to you about deal sources. Now, I tend to be a bit negative about deal sources, and in this episode I'm going to be explaining to you in a balanced fashion the pros of deal sources and the negatives of deal sources. So let's kick off with what's good about deal sources. They have deals, one would assume, so that's good. They have lots of vendors that are wanting to sell their properties, and hopefully the deal sourcer has signed up the vendor, has got them in some kind of legally binding agreement and can introduce you to that vendor. Often they haven't got them in a legally binding agreement, we'll come on to that in a minute, but the expectation is they're a deal sourcer, they have deals, and you want to invest in property, you want to buy properties, so it should be a match made in heaven. That's the positive about it. Unfortunately, it doesn't always go to plan. And in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about why. Well, the first problem is, and I've just alluded to it there, they often don't have the vendor actually signed up to anything. Often they haven't even spoken to the vendor because they've got it from another deal sourcer. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 people in the chain, and at that point you may as well give up. Now, please don't think that I've got a downer on deal sources. I haven't at all. I have done some fantastic deals through deal sources, and I've paid very good fees. In fact, the highest fee I've ever paid was £15,000 for a single lead. All that I got was a name and a number and an introduction. That's all it was. I did all of the work. I structured the deal. I purchased the property. I met with the vendor. I did the handover. I did all the legals, and I paid £15,000, and I'm delighted that I did because I have a fantastic deal, a property now that earns me great cash flow every single month. I don't have a downer on deal sources at all. But what I do have a downer on is wasting time. And what I see a lot of my clients doing, not once I've educated them, but especially when they come into EPP, is they waste their time. And the saying goes, the shortcut is often the long way round. And that's what deal sources look like. They look like the easy way, the cheating way, the path of least resistance way of getting vendors. And why would I do leafleting or newspaper advertising, or why would I go knock on hundreds of estate agents' doors if I can just go to a deal source and only pay them £2,000 or £3,000 and get a phenomenally motivated vendor? Well, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Not always, but normally. And that not always is what keeps people having a look on the emails each day and having a bit of due diligence on the deal. Now, I've got a rule with deal sources. I'm going to share it with you now. I will not look at any deal source's email. If they email me and they find me on the internet, they go on the EPP website and they find me and, oh Frank, I've got loads of deals, you've got lots of franchisees, match made in heaven, let's do some business together. And my response always now to lead sources is, I would love to work with you. We buy 15, 20 properties a month. I would love to work with you. If you have a deal that you think matches our criteria, then pick up the phone and tell me about it, and we'll have a chat, and if it fits our criteria, then fantastic. Well, Frank, we get so many deals, let me just add you to the email database and just email them all through to you. No thank you. I'm very selective about what I buy, but we don't know your criteria. No problem at all. Let me tell you my criteria now. I can pay up to 75% of the RICS value of a property. So if it values at £100,000, I can pay up to 75%, or I can pay market value over a period of 10 to 15 years. So if you have a vendor that is happy with 75% of a RICS valuation, or is happy to take market value over 10 to 15 years, I'm your man. Give me a bell, I can buy those all day long. And that's all they need to know. They don't need to know anything else. Yeah, but Frank, where in the country? I'll buy anywhere in the country. I've got franchisees all over the country. They would love to buy these deals. But do you want HMOs or serviced accommodation or single ASTs? I don't mind. If it makes some money every month, I'm happy. It has to be cash flow positive. Okay. Do you know how many phone calls I get? It's like tumbleweed. And do you know why? Because they aren't real deals. They aren't, most of them aren't actually deals at all. I'll give you an example. A flat in Derby, it's on the worst street in Derby. If you stand outside of it, just as the sun's starting to go down, you can see queues of people outside selective houses. They're queuing up for their daily medication, except it's not legal medication. They're getting their fix from their local dealer. It is that prominent. You see cars, police cars, driving down every half an hour, every 20 minutes, because it's that kind of a street. And if you stand there for another half an hour while it gets really dark, I don't. I'm giving you a hypothetical situation here. Some ladies will come and join you and they'll stand there as well, and these cars will start slowing down and winding down their windows. You get the picture of the kind of street that we're talking about. There was a flat. Well, I say it was a flat. It was a flat, but it was a deal, an investment deal. It was worth at least £60,000 according to this email. This email got forwarded to me by a friend saying, Frank, this is in Derby. You live not far from Derby. This looks brilliant. £60,000 flat, and it was available for a mere £26,000. Now, I follow the Derby auctions. I know my goldmine area pretty well. This property had been on the market for a couple of years and had failed to sell at auction at £26,000. But all of a sudden it was on this, and my friend had forwarded it to me so I could see the email. Brilliant deal, whatever that is, you know, what was that, 54% below market value, something crazy like that. It's less than 50%, isn't it? So 54% below market value. It will rent for £500 a month. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck getting any rent out of any tenant that occupies that property. That you might be able to get some squatters that would move in. And lo and behold, and now, funnily enough, I own a property very close to that. Not actually on that street, but I own a property very close to it. So I drive past it quite frequently, and I saw the new buyers. I don't know if they bought it off that email, but I saw the new buyers and they were all excited. You could tell they're newbies. They had new toolboxes, so they had their brand new toolboxes, and they were like taking the grills off the windows. That's a bad sign, isn't it, when you have to take grills off the windows? And they were doing the work themselves, which is a very clear sign that they're newbie investors. And to let board went up and they couldn't get any tenants, and then it went back on the market and they couldn't sell it, and now it's boarded up, and it's been boarded up for the last 3 years. I can only imagine that they've put that to one side. They've like siloed that memory in their subconscious and have just written it off as a £26,000 mistake, or after purchase costs, and they would have paid a sourcing fee. That's the crazy thing, a sourcing fee of £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 for that, plus they would have paid legals. They would have paid, would they have paid stamp duty? No, not on a £26,000 purchase. So no stamp duty, silver lining. But they're into that deal for £32,000, and it's a liability. It's not going to make them any money at all. So my point is, a deal often isn't a deal from a lead source. And you're probably sat there thinking, well, who are these lead sources? Well, you have to ask the question. If you go to gurus and you go and listen to people speaking on stages, people that sell training for property, they'll talk about lead sourcing as if it's the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, you go on Rightmove and you find some deals, you negotiate 10 grand off, and then you email it out to your database. And that's the bit that is true. These emails with this brilliant deal that you're doing your due diligence on, they're not deals, because they're sent to thousands of people. And if your deal sourcer isn't the first one, if it's gone to one and then another, how many hundreds of thousands of people might have seen this brilliant deal? So you're never getting the real deals, because the real deals get bought by people like me and my clients. We don't have to broadcast them to thousands of people for them to get bought. So it kind of shows the quality of these investments. If they're just being emailed to you speculatively, how good can they really be? So these deal sources typically aren't investors themselves, which is why they don't know how to structure a deal. They don't even know how to negotiate with the vendor. And often they haven't even spoken to the vendor. They've got a joint venture going on with another deal sourcer. I hesitate to call them that. I'm going to call them sources from now on, because I'm not sure they're even deals. Well, often they're not. The problem also with a sourcer is you need to be in direct contact with the vendor. And I'm helping one of my clients to do this at the moment. There's a £30,000 non-refundable fee. Now, it's a very exciting deal. It's in central London, very expensive property. The £30,000 fee is well worth it if the deal goes through, but the sourcer won't give my client access to the vendor until they've paid 30k. And I've said to my client, you cannot risk 30k in someone else's bank account hoping they're going to give it back to you if the deal goes through. So I've helped my client to negotiate holding the funds in a solicitor's client bank account in escrow. So if the deal goes through, the solicitor is duty bound, irrevocably duty bound to pay it. They give an undertaking to the sourcer, they'll get their 30k, but if it doesn't go through for any reason at all, the 30k comes back to my client. So you can sometimes get access to the vendor directly, but most sourcers won't let you speak to them. Well, if you've watched some of my videos, especially if you watch some of my negotiation and sales videos on how to speak to vendors, how to structure a below market value purchase or a sophisticated purchase, you'll realize that you have to be speaking to the vendor. It's like a doctor trying to treat their patient, and the patient comes in and says, I've got a problem, and the doctor can't ask them any questions. So the doctor knows they've got a problem and they're like behind a curtain, and he goes, I've got some medicines here. I tell you what, throws it over the curtain, try that, see if that makes you better. It's the same as trying to buy a property without knowing the vendor's situation. You don't know what solution to use. You don't know what solution is going to solve their problem for them. You have to have a bit of a dialogue. Tell me about your situation. What are you trying to achieve? Why aren't you selling through an estate agent? Now you're reverting to negotiating on price through a third party, and that very, very rarely, if ever, works. The other problem is if you're negotiating with a sourcer, you can't be sure that that vendor isn't speaking to other clients of either that sourcer or other sourcers. And as soon as there's another interested party, you're never going to get the best SPI deal, the best sophisticated property investment deal. You're never going to get the best BMV. You're going to be competing, and you want your vendor in a position of scarcity. You want to be the only person that can help them to solve their property problem. And as soon as there's a second or third or fourth person in the running, even if they've just made tentative inquiries, you're not going to get the best deal. So that's one of the biggest problems through sources. The only way that you can make this work, and I know this has been a bit of a, don't use sources. I'm not saying that, and those of you that are sources, please don't criticize me. I'm just giving my experience. I'm giving my perspective. For most investors, it's not worth your while critiquing and looking at deals that have come via sources, unless, and I will finish on this note, unless you have qualified the sourcer, you know them personally, you've got to know the type of deals they do, you have used them before, you have built a relationship with them, they've built a relationship with you, and they're willing to pick up the phone and talk to you about a deal. And if they're that kind of a high quality sourcer, then you can pay them 5 grand, you can pay them 10 grand, you can pay them 15 grand like I paid mine, you can pay them 30 grand like my client is trying to pay them at the moment if he can get the deal over the line. Because the deal, when there really is a deal, and they do get some, will be worth paying that massive finder's fee. But what you don't want to get caught by is 2 grand here, 4 grand here, for absolute rubbish, that if you'd just been on the open market and had seen the auction properties, or had seen the properties that are now delisted on Rightmove but were there previously, then you could have picked them up for the same price, sometimes even less, and not had to pay a sourcing fee. We subscribe to Rightmove Plus, which is the estate agent side of Rightmove. It costs about £1,500 a month. And what it enables us to see is all the historic listings of properties by all agents, and it's hilarious. You can sometimes see the history of the property. You can see the story where they bought it at a high price in the past, and then it came down, and then they delisted it and it came on with another agent at a lower price, and you can just see it coming down, and then all of a sudden it's like, I've got a deal, it's worth this, and look, I've got it at this. It's like, actually, Mr. Saucer, it was on the market for that for 3 months with this agent. You've just delisted it with that agent, and now you're trying to sell it as a deal. So I guess my take-home message for deal sourcers and sourcing agents is be careful. Do your due diligence. Don't assume that if you're on a mailing list, you're getting genuine opportunities. Be cautious, do your own due diligence, and if there is a nugget there, pursue it by all means, but pursue it on the phone. Get the sourcer to tell you about the vendor, and make sure, this is my top tip for dealing with sourcers, to be fair, dealing with vendors of any kind, is get direct to the vendor. Sit down in front of them, even in these COVID times, sit down in front of them, have a coffee with them. You can be wearing your mask, you can be socially distanced, you are doing your business. Your business is investing in property. You're allowed to go to people's houses. You're allowed to sit down with them, if they're comfortable with it, of course. Chew the fat, build some relationship, work out what their problem is, and then you can help them. Only then can you work out the best deal possible. If they're uncomfortable with it, no problem at all. You can do your face-to-face meeting via Zoom. We're doing lots of that at the moment. So hopefully that's helped you dealing with sourcers and deal sourcers. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below. I'd love to help them. I'd love to help you with them. And if you have any topics that you'd like me to cover on this channel, give me a shout and I will happily help you on your investment journey in whatever way I can. Hit the notification bell, guys. Click the subscribe button, and I'll see you in an episode soon. In the meantime, happy investing.